All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a pretty controversial law of power, one that argues the real path to influence isn't through strength, but by finding and exploiting a person's deepest weakness.
So let's just get right into it. The whole idea behind Law 33 is, well, it's pretty blunt. It says that everyone has a weak spot, a vulnerability. Think of it like a psychological lever that, if you can just find it, gives you this incredible advantage.
To really get a feel for this, let's look at a classic fable. So you've got this mighty lion, right? The king of the jungle, the whole deal. His strength is just off the charts. Until, that is, he runs up against something he can't muscle his way through. A huge, impassable ravine.
And then, who shows up? A cunning little fox. Now, the fox is no dummy. He knows he stands zero chance against the lion in a physical fight. So, what does he do? He goes for the lion's thumbscrew, his massive, colossal pride. He starts flattering him, saying, "Oh, a tiny little jump like that? That's nothing for someone as powerful as you."
And this is where it all clicks into place. The lion, completely blinded by his own ego, takes the impossible leap and falls. The fox got exactly what he wanted, not with strength, but with a few smart words. See, he didn't go after the lion's strength at all. He went straight for his weakness.
So, what's the big takeaway here? The law basically argues that a head-on fight is usually just a waste of time and energy. The smarter path, the more efficient path to getting what you want, is to find those hidden weak spots and apply just a little, subtle pressure.
Okay, so that all makes sense in a fable, but how does this work in the real world? I mean, how do you actually find these vulnerabilities? Well, the law doesn't just leave you hanging. It actually lays out a pretty clear strategy for how to observe people.
Sigmund Freud had a great quote about this. He said people are basically broadcasting their secrets all the time, even when they're trying not to. The real trick isn't trying to pry a secret out of someone, it's just learning to pay attention to the signals they're already sending out, loud and clear.
And this is where it gets really practical. The search is broken down into these 5 key areas. It's not just one thing to look for. No, it's about finding patterns. You're looking at their unconscious signals, maybe digging into unmet childhood needs, noticing what they seem to overcompensate for, finding that one deep insecurity, and tapping into those really powerful, sometimes irrational, emotions.
Okay, so let's build on that a little. Let's talk about some of the most common and frankly powerful types of weaknesses you're likely to run into. The funny thing is, a lot of the time, they're hiding in plain sight.
One of the absolute best tactics is to look for contrasts. Basically, the exact opposite of what someone is trying to show the world. Think about it. The guy who's always thumping his chest, acting all tough, there's a good chance he's masking some really deep fear. The person who's super prim and proper, they might be hiding some powerful desires. The facade they build is like a giant flashing arrow pointing right at the weakness it's designed to cover up.
And at the heart of so many of these weaknesses, you find these big emotional voids, right? People who feel insecure are just desperate for someone to tell them they're okay. People who are chronically unhappy are always looking for someone or something to make them feel whole. These needs are, well, they're right there on the surface, creating a huge opening for anyone who's willing to step in and fill that void.
Okay, let's look at a real-world example. A master of this game, Cardinal Richelieu. This is a guy who used this law not just to get ahead, but to basically take control of an entire country.
So Richelieu was smart. He looked at the French court and realized the young king wasn't the one calling the shots. Nope, the real power, the true center of gravity, was his mother, Marie de Medicis. So she became his target.
And he didn't go to her with policy proposals or political arguments. That would have been a waste of time. Instead, he found her thumbscrew. And what was it? A deep, profound insecurity and a near-constant need for attention and validation from men. So what did he do? He gave her exactly that. He showered her with praise, making her feel like the most important, respected person in the room.
And the result? It was absolutely incredible. By becoming essential to her ego, he became essential to her politically. It was a simple chain of command. He controlled her, she controlled her son, the king, and by extension, he controlled France. Just brilliant, in a ruthless kind of way.
But this stuff isn't just for politics and royalty. It's just as powerful in the world of business, and there's no better example than the legendary art dealer, a guy named Joseph Devine.
So Devine, he zeroes in on this woman, Arabella Huntington. Now, she was fabulously wealthy. I mean, more money than she could ever possibly spend. But she came from nothing.
And in high society, she was a total outcast, and she was painfully, deeply insecure about it.
Duveen saw her thumbscrew almost immediately. It had nothing to do with money. She didn't need more of that. What she desperately needed was to feel like she belonged. She craved acceptance from the very people who looked down on her. That social validation, that was everything to her.
So what did Duveen do? He never, ever made her feel small. Instead, he treated her like an equal, a true expert with impeccable taste. You see, he wasn't just selling her paintings. He was selling her a feeling of importance, a feeling of belonging. And by filling that emotional void for her, he turned her insecurity into his single greatest financial asset. She became his most loyal and most profitable client.
Okay, so this all sounds incredibly powerful, right? Almost foolproof. But, and this is a huge but, there's a critical warning that comes with this law. What happens if you push too hard? What happens if you turn that thumbscrew just a little too far? Because playing with these kinds of deep emotions, that's a very, very risky game.
And this brings us to the reversal of the law, the danger. When you start poking at someone's most raw, volatile insecurities, you can unleash forces that you simply cannot control. Things can spiral, and your whole plan can blow up in your face.
So the key here is knowing when to stop. You take someone timid and push them too far, they might just snap and become totally reckless and unpredictable. You feed someone's need for attention, pretty soon they might become this bottomless pit that you can never fill. You have to remember, the goal here is supposed to be strategic power, not just getting a cheap thrill from having control over somebody. In the end, this law leaves us with a really powerful and, kinda unsettling idea. It's the notion that if you can figure out what truly drives a person, that hidden mainspring, their deepest fear or desire, you have the key to their will. You have the key to influencing them. And whether that key is used for good or for something else, well, that's a pretty profound thing to think about.